Hello and welcome everybody to this wonderful and educational Lunch and Learn, which is brought to you by Family Partners of Morris in Sussex County. Right here, this is your host, Patricia Houston, and today is joining us Dr. Melissa Brymer. Welcome, Dr. Melissa.
Oh, thank you for having me today.
An honor having you, Dr. Melissa. Dr. Melissa is the Director of Terrorism and Disaster Program at the UCLA Duke University National Center for Child Traumatic Stress. And today we are going to start this Lunch and Learn, first of all, by understanding what is the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, Dr. Melissa?
Thanks for asking. So the Child Traumatic Stress Network is a network funded by SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. And we actually have 150 centers across the country. And our mission is to improve the access and quality of care for all kids who have been impacted by child trauma and their families. So it could be because of domestic violence, sexual abuse, community violence. And so we think about how do we make sure that services are available to kids in schools, thinking about making sure that doctors, anyone who touches a child's life, including our child welfare and juvenile justice systems. So we think about how do we adapt practices for kids that are adolescents, of school age, of what I call our little biddies, our preschoolers and infants, and think about how do we adapt practices for those different developmental, as well as thinking about cultural and differences as well. And so we also have about 200 now, what we call affiliates, who are individuals that have been part of our network before, but aren't currently funded, but they actually believe in the mission of what we're trying to achieve. So it's really exciting that we can be a national center. The network, the National Center is co-located at UCLA and at Duke University. So I'm actually on the UCLA side, but I have once lived in Morris County. So I love your community and I'm glad I can be with you guys today.
Wonderful. We are so happy to have you. Thank you again. So Dr. Melissa, what do you do with the National Child Traumatic Stress Network?
So my job is, I told you that we deal with all types of traumas. The traumas that I deal with are national emergencies, whether they're national disasters, such as the hurricanes. We're in hurricane season right now, tornadoes, wildfires, COVID, which is a public health emergency. And we also help after mass violent events, school shootings. And so it's been a very busy time period right now, helping because there's been quite a bit of situations that have been happening, whether it's the train derailment in Missouri to the migrant truck tragedy in San Antonio. It's really important for us to think about what has impacted communities, and is there things that we can be doing to help those families, to help those caregivers that are supporting those families during these times?
Oh, definitely, you do have a big responsibility on your shoulder for sure. All right. So how do we help children and families who have experienced a shooting or witnesses the news about a shooting?
We've been hearing quite a bit about different shootings that have been happening, whether it's been close to you guys in Buffalo to what we have been hearing in Uvalde. So, what I say is that we have to first take into account how has some families experienced this? Do they have loved ones in the affected area that they had to worry about their loved one's safety? Did they have their own previous experience of gun violence in their own, in their community or elsewhere? Are they watching it on the news and getting triggered? So each of those different kind of buckets, I call them, require different levels of attention. And so first and foremost, we do want to make sure that anyone who's, if you work with a family who has been through a shooting or have had their previous experience, when we hear all of this on the news, that makes them remember their own experience. And it's always good to check in with those people to, how are they doing? Are they coping okay right now? Or do they see an increase of reactions? One of the reactions that we tend to see predominantly is changes in our sleep. When we are distressed about something, sometimes we focus on nightmares, but it can also be difficulty falling asleep, waking up often, or just not having restful sleep. We also know that these kind of events make us think about what our own experiences, or might even be thinking about what we've been witnessing online when we don't want to be. And we could be kind of replaying it in our heads. For those of us who might have experienced our own trauma, we might have additional reactions to some noises and startle and become jumpy. So what we say is, take notice of how you're reacting. Mm-hmm. Do you have the right coping strategies to help to calm right now or to support yourselves? And if you don't, then finding different resources in your community, or there's a lot of self-help online that can help you to get the support that you need.
Wonderful, and thank you. And this is the reason as to why we are very happy to have this conversation today, because we know families, providers, everybody, they have questions about this specific topic. And the wonderful and beauty about this is that the information is coming from you about what they can do best. So we know, Dr. Melissa, that the 4th of July is approaching. How do we help these children celebrate after this holiday?
Well, we want to really highlight that, 4th of July is a time that families come together. We have certain traditions that we try to honor. We might listen to fireworks. We might have a picnic. But if you are a child or a family who has been through gun violence, or even if you have a family member who's been in the military and served in combat, we know that 4th of July may not be the joy that it is for many in the US. So it's really important now to really think about, how do we support kids who have been through a shooting to get through the 4th of July. And so one of the things that we talk about is, what are some of those reminders or things that might make someone upset? So we know if you've been through a shooting, hearing the fireworks could actually make your body startle, almost like you're where you almost feel like you're in life threat again. So you can have the heart racing, your stomach might jump. You might see the kids wanting to flee the area because they're searching for a safe place. We know that barbecues are a fun thing. Well, if you smell the smoke, that smell of smoke, if you were near the gunfire, that could be a similar sound. Sometimes we might hear emergency vehicles, and that could trigger, or just being around crowds. If you were in a situation where the shooting happened around a crowd, just being with others could be a reminder. So we say, first, identify what may be those triggers for that child or for the family based on your experience. Second, we want to make sure that kids and adults understand that their reactions are understandable. There's a reason for them. And so some of the things that we say to kids are, you went through something really scary and awful. It makes sense that you're feeling this way. If you get scared during the 4th or even right before the 4th, if there are fireworks earlier this weekend, this doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. Kids always wonder if I'm reacting, is there something wrong? And we want to make sure that they understand there's nothing wrong with them. It's actually their brain helping them to protect them from danger or a serious situation. So hearing fireworks may not be as fun as it was prior to the shooting. That it might be hard this year, but it's not always going to be hard this way. The next thing that we do is actually talk to kids and adults about what might be happening in their body. So when you are getting reactive and have that reminder, your body is on high alert. It might be monitoring, is it safe here? Do I need to leave the situation? I may be thinking about aspects of the shooting that I went through. My heart might be racing really a lot. I might feel shaky or panicky. So part of this is helping them to, again, appreciate that their body is protecting them from the danger. It's actually how our brains protect ourselves. Just as if you think of an animal that is in threat, they freeze for a second, they look around to see what's safe. Our bodies do the same thing. And that's exactly what's happening when we get triggered. But what is important in all this is that we can actually manage and handle our reactions. Although we might feel out of control during that time, we actually want to teach kids and adults that they can actually manage their reaction. First and foremost, let kids know that they're not alone, that their parents or caregivers are here for them. We want to show empathy by saying that we understand that this might be a difficult year, that it will get better over time. And although you're feeling scared right now, that we're actually safe. Then we want to say, what can we do to help them to calm their bodies down? And so one of the things to reduce a heart rate is to hold that person's hand or arm, or put their arm around their shoulder. There's actually studies that show that just holding their hands can actually help to reduce their heart rate. We want them to feel cared for. So giving a back rub if I'm a parent, reassuring that they're safe. Another thing I do is slow down my breath. If I see somebody that's panicky, I can take a breath in, and I'm watching all of you that you're also doing the same thing. Some kids or some adults might like to listen to music or distract themselves or want to play. We should be doing that for our kids and finding those ways to help calm. And I think the biggest thing I'd want to say is, how do we plan now? So what if kids are feeling like, what, because of what I've experienced this year or recently, I don't want to listen to the fireworks. So maybe we have to spend the evening with putting headphones on, watching a movie. If they want to watch fireworks but don't want to hear the sound, fireworks are on TV. I can actually keep the mute button on and we can see the beauty of the fireworks, or maybe put music on with the fireworks or something like that. Or just go do things that don't connect to that. So it's really important to what will that day look like? But if you guys have any neighbors like me, I have neighbors that like to do the fireworks way before the 4th of July. So helping kids to think about even just starting tomorrow or the next day, how do you anticipate that when those fourth fireworks happen and we're not expecting it? How do we help the kids to again feel like they're safe right now? We get why they're feeling this way. They're not alone. And what can we do to help them calm? And the last piece of all of this is, you know what? How do we honor that as a family we came together and we supported each other during this time? Always we can always run to the next thing that we have to tackle, but we've got to celebrate when we've had many successes and helped our family members get through something that is difficult.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Melissa, for addressing that. And another question we have in here is basically, we do know that many families experience the death of a loved one after COVID-19. How do we help kids heal from those losses?
You're absolutely right. So hearing about the shootings, we've also heard about so many loved ones that died in these incidents, and it's making us think about our own losses. And given how many COVID losses, we need to check in with kids. How are they doing with them? And so one of the things I talk about is that there's a difference between trauma and loss as it relates to grief. With trauma, we can recover from trauma. When we experience the death of a loved one, we don't recover from the death of a loved one. We make meaning. We honor that person and what they meant in their life. But we don't bounce back, like we use that word resilience. So we really talk about how do we help kids and adults heal. So we do want to talk first and foremost, Patricia, of are they thinking about their loved one right now? Reminiscing is a natural part of grieving. And is there something that the recent events may be making them think about their loved one? Is there something about the 4th of July maybe they did together and we want to spend a moment acknowledging that person? But we also know that the COVID, frankly, has prevented some families from doing those goodbye rituals or mourning rituals that are so important for our healing. And so I've been telling so many families that even if you weren't able to maybe have some of those services right at the time, maybe it's time to do them now, or thinking about ways to still have the family together to think about that person or do something that makes you remember that person. So I know that one family whose loved one died over a year ago, but they weren't able to come together because of some of the restrictions in their area. But that person loved the beach. And so now the family is going to come together and spend a weekend going to the beach, but also cleaning up the beach so that they feel like they're doing something to honor that person, what that person represented to them. And they are looking forward to sharing stories together. We have some great resources that I'm happy to talk about at the end to help kids talk about grief. We have a book. We actually have 2 books, and both of them are in English and in Spanish. One's called Remembering Rosie and Jeremy's Journey. And these books are helping kids to understand what are those reactions that I'm feeling because of the death, but what are those things I can do to help my journey and to get that support that I need. So there are great books out there for and strategies so that we can help caregivers help kids with grieving rituals and helping them through this journey.
Awesome. And I just want to remind everybody that today we're just kind of doing like an overview in relation to this topic. All the information for Dr. Melissa's website and contact information, everything is going to be right below the video, and also the website for Family Partner as well. So if you guys have any questions, all the contact information will be right below the video. And Dr. Melissa, another question I have, how can parents or caregivers in general take care of themselves with this news of violence?
I think it's key that we take care of ourselves as adults. And what I usually say is, even before we talk to our kids, we need to stop and think about how these events are affecting us. It's not like we have the words right away. So taking a minute, maybe talking to our support networks, whether it's our partners, our friends, our coworkers, and talking through, especially when with some of these events that might be impacting some of our identities, when some of these events are targeting different groups, whether it's targeting in Buffalo the Black community, targeting LGBTQ, Tulsa targeted healthcare workers, and some of us really had to be thinking about how that felt when it is our identities. And at the same time, then we do have to have those conversations with our kids, thinking about our family values, and is there things that we might want to do as a family to think about change, or what are those things that we can be doing to be part of the solution in the healing of some of these. So some family I know some families, when Tulsa happened, they wanted to send a note of thanks to their fellow healthcare workers. Sometimes we might want to support an organization or agency in our community who does help those who have been impacted by violence, or they want to do some advocacy. And thinking about that as a family is really important in this.
Thank you. And Dr. Melissa, why do you think it's important for families to have this type of conversation when something traumatic is happening instead of isolating themselves?
Well, I think these events, they bring up so much emotion, and we know from the literature, I'm a research geek as much as responding to these events, but I would say that we know that we're social creatures, right? And so one of the most protective factors is when we support each other. And I don't know how to support you if I don't ask you what's going on. And so the more that we can open up, that dialogue is a good thing, that having conversations. It's okay, for example, if we're colleagues, Patricia, and you're saying, this isn't the right time for me just even checking in, like, I just was wondering how you were doing today. At least you knew I cared about you, and that when you're ready to have that conversation, that you have an outlet. So I think the pandemic in particular has put up all these walls and these barriers, and it's so important right now to reduce those barriers. I would also say, for since I do work so much with kids and teenagers, just because we're not having the conversation in front of our kids doesn't mean our kids haven't heard about what's happening. In today's day and age, where there's texting, when there's social media going on, and there's just such access to the internet, we have to check in and actually ask kids, what have you heard? What have you seen? Because once we understand what they have seen and heard, then we can figure out what's needed. So sometimes some kids might have read a headline and they might have misunderstood the headline. So we might have to clarify some of the facts. Some of our kids might have seen videos that were pretty distressing about some of these incidences, and we need to support them on what they saw. Some may have really philosophical questions about whether policies or how this stuff happens, or might be connecting it to their faith, and we might have to have a deeper conversation with them and have, again, going to our family values on this. And so it's so key that we open up the conversations, including for us adults. There's no reason that we should be suffering in silence when all of us have our support networks.
Dr. Melissa, and since we have this amazing opportunity of having you here today, I just want to ask this question. In relation to PTSD, what are some of the signs that caregiver or people in general should be looking for?
So with PTSD, we have to remember PTSD does not happen till a month after a trauma. So sometimes when we have just had an experience or we just hear about something, all of us are going to react. You know, we all heard of Uvalde, and you know, there was all of us had reactions. That doesn't mean that we have PTSD. So PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, really does constitute that we may be having different reminders, as I talked about, like with the 4th of July, where we might be reacting to some of these reactions, where our hearts are racing, we're feeling in life threat. We might be replaying over and over again what has been happening. There could be avoidance, where I don't want to talk about aspects of what I experienced, and I actively am avoiding going back to where it happened, or talking about it with people that I was with, or even avoiding the people I was with. And mostly we're really also looking at how is it impacting our functioning? Is it impacting kids' ability to focus at school or even attend school? Or for us as adults, are we having difficulty going to work or even functioning as parents? And if we're not sure, there's no harm in going to your physician and checking in. Am I okay right now? Do I need extra support? There's also different warm lines, like the disaster distress hotline, that you can just give a call and talk to somebody about what you're experiencing. There are actually apps, and I'm going to make sure that I put these into the chat. One's called Transcend, and Transcend is an app that my colleagues created for those who've experienced violence. And Bounce Back Now is another one that is for people who've experienced natural disasters. So these apps actually help us. And the Veterans Administration actually has an app called PTSD Coach. All of these are free on Apple and Android, so that we can look at, you know, do we have any of these reactions? Is this a time that I can take care of myself, or is it just enough where I need to get extra help? And so there's a lot of tools out there for us to get the support and get the direction that we need.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing all that information. So taking into consideration the importance of mental health and also self-care, why do you think it's important for caregivers to follow up with a mental health professional if they feel overwhelmed, or if they feel, you know, that something is going on?
I think it's always good if you're asking the question, there's a reason for it. But I also know right now that so many of us are under stress right now. So I'm going to answer the question just a little bit slightly right now. So one thing that we've been working on, Patricia, that over the pandemic, is that you go to a doctor, right? And if you have symptoms, sometimes you'll get a discharge or after action that if something, you might have to take a medication as needed or PRN. So we've done a little bit of a spoof on PRN. So our PRN for wellness is pause, reset, and nourish. So let's just take a minute for, and what is pause? I'm going to ask us to take 3 breaths right now. The first breath, let's take it in and take and monitor what's going on in your body. Are you feeling tension right now? When I'm tensed, I feel it in my neck. Maybe you feel it in your arms. So do a body scan as you take that breath of what's going on with your body. The second breath I'm going to ask you to take in is what's going on with our mind. Is our mind clear right now, or is it cluttered with all of our to-dos? Are we worried about something that we're like obsessed over it right now? So the first breath is doing that body scan. The second is let's scan what's happening with our mind. And the third breath is, well, how are we feeling? Are we feeling sadness because we might have had the death of a loved one? Are we excited that it's the 3-day weekend coming up and we get to spend time with our family? Are we angry about stuff that we might have been seeing in the news lately? So pauses, let's take 3 breaths. Body, mind, feeling. Reset is, how do we throughout the day think about when we need to reset or get ourselves recentered? So as parents, not every hour of the day is all the same, right? And so you might have had a moment where the kids are like not listening. It's like total chaos. And now all of a sudden you have to go to a meeting. So how do we reset so that we can be present in the meeting? So, and let go of what we might have just dealt with our kids. Or for those who are providers, you just had a really tough time with the client and they told you stuff that was really powerful. And now you want to be there for the next person. So resetting is, what are those things for us to reset? So you guys probably saw a little while ago, I'm at home and I have my pets, so I can pet my cat. I might actually think about either a mantra or a prayer that helps me to feel better about myself. We all have our phones, and on the front, we usually have a picture of our last vacation, our family, our pets, or looking at that might help. Just going outside for a minute and just taking a breath in, or getting that coffee that you asked us to get earlier, Patricia. What's those things that can just help us to reset? Including reset might be letting it go and acknowledging I did the very best I can. Nourish is when we really want to fill that gas tank and we really want to balance and replenish our souls. What are those things that we can be doing for that create lightheartedness, playfulness? Honoring our loved ones who died is part of that nourishing. It could be gratitude for a success. We're almost at the end of the week. What did we accomplish as a group? Or why you got into these profession. So there's ways that we need to think about nourishing, that we really take that long walk, or go to the beach and watch those dolphins play, or what's those things that fill you up. And there's lots of apps out there that can help us with our PRN plan. What's those things that you can do to reset, to nourish? But as you were saying, there are times that we're just not feeling ourselves. And even despite all of our support, what we're doing for ourselves, we might need some extra help. And so are you connected to an employee assistance program? Is it time to call a mental health provider and check in for that extra help? And at least and foremost, calling somebody that you can trust in to say that you're not okay right now. And they can also help you to find those things. So I hope all of us think about our PRNs.
That information is amazing, Dr. Melissa. Thank you very much. I know a lot of families, providers, and everybody is going to benefit from this type of information. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have another question, Dr. Melissa. So would you please tell us a little bit about the difference between normal stress response versus acute or perhaps PTSD? Because there's a lot of confusion in relation to that specific topic.
And COVID has messed that up big time. So stress is really, it's a common normal reaction. What makes something trauma is that an event has to happen that is traumatic. So for everyone in COVID has not been traumatic for everybody. It's caused stress for all of us. But we do know that there are some families that have experienced a traumatic event, whether it's been some families who have had abuse in their home. There could be the traumatic death of somebody right now. For some families, being stuck with your family, it wasn't the healthiest of places. And so we do need to decipher the distress from a trauma and thinking about, are there families who have experienced a traumatic event during this, and making sure that we support them, because that's what's with PTSD.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now, I am sure everybody want to know how they can get in contact with Dr. Melissa. So Dr. Melissa, would you please go over contact information?
Absolutely. And hold on, this did not show right. Hold on. I'm trying to. Okay, so I do. So I had talked to you guys earlier that I am part of the Child Trauma Network. And we have a website, and our website is right here at nctsn.org. Our website, so the PRN, we actually have a 2-page resource on our Pause, Reset, and Nourish in English and in Spanish. You will actually see on the front page that if you do have people that are having a problem with the 4th of July, in English and in Spanish, there is a resource that we have on talking about how to help families and kids with the 4th of July, and including right on the front page for people who have experienced either a shooting or mass violent event, talking with kids, helping kids with grief. All of those resources are on our website. Everything is free. For our providers, we actually have an e-learning platform. If you take the WWWA and have learn.nctsn.org, those are all our free courses. And so we have over 400 courses. Some of you might be interested in helping kids after grief. Some might be interested in helping kids after child sexual abuse. We have different courses for different needs. If you're just wanting to stay up to date and learning what things that we are creating or opportunities, you can sign up to be on our listserv, which you'd only get 2 or 3 emails a month. We try to make sure it's not too much. So if you go to info@nctsn.org, that's where you can get updated and see kind of some of our developments over time. And below here are our resources, our social media, if you want to link with us. So those are some of the ways that you can learn about the NCTSN and get additional resources than I've been able to address today.
Thank you, Dr. Melissa. And I also want to remind everyone that the contact information and everything, I know I mentioned at the beginning, but I want to repeat it one more time. All the contact information, website, and everything is going to be right below this video. So you're going to have everything right there. Dr. Melissa, and to conclude, I would like to hear Dr. Melissa's final thoughts in relation to this topic and everything that is going on.
I just hope each of us take the moments to do our own PRN, because when we do our PRN, that will allow us as a family and our kids to do our PRN and really be able to really take care of us during everything that's been happening right now.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Finally, I just want to say thank you very much, Dr. Melissa, for being here with us, and also to every single person for joining us. Like I said, it's an honor having you here. Kaylin, thank you for being here with us as well. And now it's time for Q&A. Thank you, everybody.